Welcome back to the Witchy Concoction spooky tutorial. In this section we are going to script the GUI. So if we go to Starter GUI and we see the rainbow GUI that we already set up and we open it up, we had already inserted two local scripts whenever we built the GUI, and I have since revised the script down to only one script, so you can delete the second local script. We're only going to script everything into one local script. So if you didn't already, click on Rainbow GUI, click the plus sign, and insert a local script. And you can name it whatever you want. You can leave it called local script, or you can rename it, and I renamed mine GUI local script. Okay, so since I have this extra one in there, I'm going to delete that. Well, actually, no, I need it because I'm going to show you how to script it, so I need a blank page. Okay, so as usual, at the top of the script, we are going to start with our variables. And the first thing I'm going to do is write variables for my remote events. And you've already seen this because we set some of them up in the prior script. And then we're going to have a couple new variables. Okay, so in the prior scripting we had set up remote events for, let's go back to the script, for change GUI, count event, and all found. Okay, so here's the count event and the all found, and I accidentally did that wrong. That should say change GUI. Okay, but now we have a couple more remote events. One is going to be the reset event, and one is going to be a name event. So you should have 5 remote events. Okay, and just make sure that in replicated storage, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, okay. You have all of those 5 set up. I've got a 6th one here, which must be in one of my other scripts that we have not gotten to yet. Or one that we got to, let's see, the SSS, we haven't done this script yet. The name of it. Anyways, we'll get back to that in a minute. Right now for this script we have 5 remote events. The change GUI, the count event, all found, the reset event, and the name event. So if you don't already have all of those remote events set up, then insert a remote event and then rename it to the names. Okay. All right, now we're going to write a variable for the players. And we're going to write a variable for the player. And then we're going to set up a debounce variable, local debounce, which is either true or false. It's a boolean. And that's all of the variables. Okay, so now we're going to write our remote event functions. So remember, when we wrote our script, we fired some remote events. Okay, so we are going to now receive them in the local script. Okay, so in the script, we fired remote. So right here, when a color is not found in the color table, we're adding it into the table, but we're also firing the event, and we're sending two pieces of data over, the player.name, the player's name, and in, which is the color that we find in that string values field. Okay? The string values value field. So when we receive this remote event, we're going to write a remote event function. Remote is the variable for that remote event. Dot on client event connect function. Open and close parentheses. Move the cursor over in front of the last parenthesis and hit enter. So that's your remote event function. Okay? Now we sent those two pieces of data, and when we received the two pieces of data, the name and the color we set in a variable that we named in. Okay? We need two parameters set up that represent that. Player name, color name. Okay? So they don't have to be named identical to what you sent. Okay? Because when this is fired, that data is being sent. And when I set it up, the parameters in this function, I can name them something different. And these are descriptive of what I am doing. Okay, so now we are going to set a variable up for the player GUI. Player.player GUI. When you play a game, anything that is sitting inside of starter GUI moves into player GUI. Okay? So when you write a variable to look at the GUIs, you have to write player.player GUI. You cannot write starter GUI. Starter GUI is only a holding place. So when I press play, this GUI is going to move into players, and there's going to be a folder in there called player GUI. So let me press play, and if we click on players and then we open up the player, we see the player GUI. Every player gets this. And any GUIs that were in starter GUI move into the player GUI. So here it is. So that's why we have to write the variable that way. Because we're in a local script, and it's now going to look at that GUI for that player. Okay? Then I'm going to write local GUI equals player GUI, wait for child, rainbow GUI, giving it time to load. That's why I'm writing it with wait for child. Okay. Local buttons equals GUI dot outer frame dot inner frame get children. Because remember, when we set up the GUI, we had the outer frame and the inner frame, and then inside of the inner frame we had all of the buttons that we named the colors. So buttons is like our table holding the children of inner frame. For underscore comma V in pairs, buttons do. So now we're using a table loop to iterate through the children that sit inside of inner frame, and we named that buttons. So that's the table that we're entering in this table loop. If V is a text button, and v.name equals color name, then run the code inside of this if statement. Okay? And remember, color name was sent when that event was fired from the server. Okay? In was the color name that we got from the image part dot the string value dot the value in the property field named value, and that happens to be the color name. Okay? V name is the button name. Okay, so it's two different things that are going to match. Okay, so if they match, and if it's a text button, and when we set these up, we used text buttons. So this is going to look at only the text buttons, but we can see that inner frame has another child called UI grid layout. And to prevent an error from happening, we need the code to say, if it's a text button, look at this. But if it's not a text button, don't include it. So that's why I wrote the if statement the way that I did. Okay. V.visible equals true. So at that point in time, we want that button to be made true if the color name matches the button name. Make it visible, and when the player runs over and touches the cauldron part, that's when this little color becomes visible, because this script states to do so, to make it visible. Because when we start, the GUI right now is not visible, but when they run over and do the touch, it's going to be made visible. GUI.announcement.text. .visible equals true. So we're also going to make the announcement text label visible at that time. Okay. GUI.announcement.text equals player. Okay. Player name has placed a quotation dot dot v dot name. Dot dot. So you can add more to this. Let's see, we could say in the cauldron. Okay, so in quotations is the text that we're going to use, the string. And then we use a space and dot dot, and we're going to put there that parameter that we're now going to use later on in the text. And this parameter already stores the player name that was sent from the server. So this is going to be the little message that pops up on the screen, and it's going to become visible when they run over and hit it with that tool, and it's going to make the color name visible and just say the player, whoever that was, placed this color in the cauldron. And you can customize this in any way you want. Okay? So you might choose to set yours up differently, or to say something different. Local text equals GUI.announcement.text. Now I'm setting up a variable, okay, for the text that is currently in the field. Because right now it's only visible on that specific player's device on the client side, and I'm setting a variable up because we're now going to fire this to the server so that all the players see that at the same time. And I'm going to use a remote event to do it. So we're going to use the send name event. That's what I decided to call it. So we're going to type send the name of the event, name event, colon, fire server. And the data we're passing is the text variable that we just set up. Task.wait 1, and then GUI.announcement.visible is false. We're going to change it back to not visible. Okay. Now we are going to, so what we just did, let me just say, we used this event, the remote, for the change to UI, and we also fired the send name event. Now we're going to use the count event on client event connect function. Okay. So this event, the count event, was fired after the count reached 7. So we're now using the count event. If count, then. So if there's a count, then run the code inside of the if statement. Local player GUI equals player dot player GUI. So we're setting up our variable again. And we have to set it again because remember when I told you local? It restricts the variable to the current scope. So when I wrote the variable inside of this event function, it was restricting that variable within the function. And now I'm doing the same thing for this function. Local GUI equals, so it's the same variable. And then I'm also writing the variable for the buttons again. So you could just copy and paste. If you have the assist feature turned on, it'll automatically populate what it thinks you're going to write next, which can be kind of annoying sometimes. But it can also be helpful. So, and then I'm writing a table loop again to iterate through the buttons. If V is a text button, then V.visible equals false. Local V equals false, so I'm setting up data that I'm going to now send to the server, and I'm putting it in a variable that I'm naming capital V. And now I'm going to reset event fire the server, the data to the server, and I'm passing the capital V, which stands for false. Okay, so we just use the reset event. So that reset event is going to be used, I believe, in my script that we haven't gotten to this one yet, that I have in server script service. Okay, we'll get to that in a little bit. And then now inside of this event, we're going to do the all found event and connect it. Okay, now in our server script, we used all found to send these two that meant either true or false. So concoction was true and finished was false. Okay, so now in my local script, I'm going to receive that connection. I'm going to write the event function that when this gets fired on the server, the code in here is going to execute. And I'm setting up my variable. And it's auto-populating script that I didn't write. here I'm going to type GUI dot text label dot visible equals concoction. Task dot wait 10 seconds. GUI dot text label dot visible equals false. I mean finished. Okay. So remember, when all was found, we fired true and false. So this is false and this is true. So we just make the text label visible and then not visible. And the text label is in the GUI was what states concoction complete. Okay, so after all 7 were found, we fire this. Okay, and we want to make the label visible. Okay, and I'm doing it on the server, but I want it to pass to all clients. I want all the players to see it. So here I'm receiving and connecting that data that's being sent, and I'm writing the remote event connection, and this is where it's actually going to change the label on the client side. Okay, so that completes this script. And again, this is the local script that sits inside of the Rainbow GUI. And so if we want to see this in action, I'm going to disable the script that I've already got working and keep the one we just wrote enabled and test this. Now, because you don't have the SSS script set up yet, the reset, it may not fully work properly, but I'm going to show you what it looks like. I have all the scripts set up on my end, and you've already seen this because we've been doing this in some of the other sections of this tutorial. But when I touch this part, you're going to see the little color become visible. And after I've touched all 7, and well, before I've touched all 7, each time I touch one, you're going to see the little message become visible saying which player. So let's test the first one and just watch the screen. Okay, so it's given the message and it's making the color visible that matches up to that tool. And after the player does the 7th one, whichever player that ends up being, the color is going to pop up, the little message is going to pop up, but then also we're going to see the message cover this that says concoction complete. And then it's going to wait about 10 seconds, and those resets are happening. And then this goes back to the way it was before the entire little round starts, and all of the parts are now back up on the board so we can duplicate the entire process again. Okay. So in the next section, we will do the script that is sitting in server script service. So I will see you there.